What's up everyone, and welcome to my coffee edition of the Cocktail Nerd Corner. I am Egor Polonskiy, your nerdy host, and today we're talking about how to make cold brew coffee. I will give you additional tips if you are making cold brew specifically for using in cocktails. Making cold brew could not be easier. Generally, cold brew is a little bit higher in caffeine than the cup of regular coffee, and many people say that cold brew is much better on their stomach. That's why I really like it, as I can always adjust its strength with additional water or milk, and I can have multiple cups of cold brew within the same day. This method of making coffee became very popular after Starbucks adopted it to over 13,000 of its locations in 2015. Shortly, hundreds of independent cafes started making cold brew, selling it in bottled or canned packaging, and even infusing cold brew with nitrogen for a creamy texture. Think about making cold brew coffee as if you were trying to brew your tea. The longer you steep coffee in water, stronger and more flavorful it gets. But be careful, because just like with the tea, there is a fine line when more is not always better. It's all about figuring out what works best for you, how concentrated you like it, and what flavors you prefer in general. Anyone can make a cold brew at home with using just a few easy found tools, coffee and room temperature water. I will show you how to make cold brew three very simple ways: in French press, in a mason jar with just a basic mash bag, and in a special cold brewer that I purchased from Amazon. The rule and the ratio of coffee to water for making cold brew will be consistent for all three of the techniques. We will use 1 part of coffee to 5 parts of room temperature filtered water. We will steep coffee in water for exactly 12 hours. I specifically prefer this ratio as I think this works best when you're trying to make enjoyable cold brew for both drinking on its own and for making cocktails with it. This combination of time and ratio creates coffee with great flavors and a lot of strength. It's not oversteeped and not bitter. Usually, depending on the coffee origin, it is able to pull a light touch of acidity that I always look for. Okay, let's brew some coffee. First, we need to choose coffee. Today, I will actually test 3 different coffee origins. One from Peru with notes of dark chocolate, cocoa nibs, and caramel. One from Guatemala with medium body, full milk chocolate and low acidity, and one from Mexico's Chiapas region with, again, low acidity, but aromas of toasted nuts and some earthy tones. Each of them I grind in a similar way, medium coarse grind that looks just like this. It is very easy if you have a food scale at home, otherwise you can just use a measuring cup. Place coffee inside the French press or into the mash bag or inside of the tube of the cold brewer. Slowly pour the needed amount of water into each of the containers. Stir or poke it gently if you can. Cover with the lid or leave on the kitchen counter for 12 hours. Some people put their cold brew in the refrigerator during the brewing time. I prefer not to do that as I think it changes the speed and intensity of extraction. Things tend to immerse slower in the cold environments, so you might get a weak coffee as a result. After 12 hours, all you need to do is push the plunge of the French press slowly all the way down, or simply take out the mash bag and the infusion tube out of the carafe. And voila, your cold brew is ready. After about 12 hours, all the 3 of the cold brew versions are ready. It's time to taste them and compare. The very first one that we brewed in the French press was the coffee from Peru. Let's taste it. It is delicious. It is full body, a lot of chocolate, very rich, excellent coffee to use in the drinks because it will hold the flavor and stand up to a very, very intense flavor profiles of other spirits or ingredients. So the second one is the one that we made in a mash bag and in a mason jar. This is the coffee from Guatemala and supposed to have a little bit less body and more like a milk chocolate. Let's see how this tastes in the cold brew form. This one definitely has less body than the previous one, but has a nice touch of acidity. If you are trying to do some drinks that have a lot of citrus, this would be a much better match in my opinion. And finally, the last coffee that we brewed, it was made in this Cold Brew Brewing carafe that I sourced from online. Yeah, this one is much lighter on the taste. It has the least amount of body to it. This tastes more like something that I would just drink day in and out if I want to have a couple cups of the cold brew and don't feel overly caffeinated and just feel relaxed and still be able to work. I think overall this was a great experiment. This gave me a much better idea of how to make cold brew coffee for the cocktails, what flavors to look for, what the coffee should taste like on its own. So yeah, let's get to the bar and I'll show you a couple of my favorite cold brew and tequila cocktails. Cold brew is excellent with tonic. So start with squeezing lime juice, then add and muddle 3 slices of English cucumber. A wow factor of this drink is a passion fruit. Then goes our lightest version of the cold brew, and of course Patrón Silver tequila. Everything gets shaken together and strained over fresh ice. Then you top it with citrus tonic and garnish. How about the Paloma made with cold brew? Rim your glass with a favorite salt and squeeze lime and add agave syrup. Then add our cold brew that was medium body and moderate in flavor. Our base spirit for this drink is the aged tequila, Patrón Reposado. Shake and strain everything into a highball and top with a quality grapefruit soda. And finally, my favorite cold brew cocktail. A riff on a classic mojito. I start with the lime juice and add 6 to 7 fresh mint leaves and ginger syrup. I use full body and rich cold brew this time. It's a perfect match for this one. To match the intensity of the coffee, I use Patrón Añejo, a much older tequila than the one we used before. Also add 1 ounce of sparkling water and fill 2/3 of the glass with crushed ice. I swizzle everything with a bar spoon, add more ice, and garnish with coffee bitters and more fresh mint.